Question. Real estate in California. What the Seriously, can someone help? What's an escrow? What's an ARM? What is an REO? What is pre-approval? Can I get pre-approval? Why is inventory so low? Why are interest rates so high? Oh, interest rates not so high? How low is low? How not so high is right.
Before you go down the road of questions, get expert help at championsofhome.com. California Association of Realtors. Who's your realtor?
Yeah. Turn the dial, hear the signal crack. Truth in the static, never turning back. Yeah. Woo! Scrolling headlights, feel the pressure in my chest. World full of noise, but they say it's for the best. Echo chambers loud, got you trapped in the feed. But I'm breaking out the box, yeah, I question what I read. They say trust the system, don't peek behind the veil. But the deeper that I look, see the cracks in the tail. From the shadows to the light, I'm igniting the flame. Independent voices rise, never playing their game. Hear the whispers in the night, voices saying stand and fight. Through the chaos, through the lies, we're the ones who open eyes. We are the truth in the static, loud and unchained, breaking the silence. Yeah, we're calling the name. Through the fire, through the noise, we don't fade. Eternal voices, never buried, never tamed. Mic check, 1, 2, this is spiritual war. Armor on my soul, yeah, I'm ready for more. They can censor every word, try to bury the sound. But the underground pulse still shaking the ground. Radio waves like a beacon in the storm. Independent minds, yeah, we far from the norm. Faith in the message, got a fire in the chest. Speak it raw, speak it real, let the truth manifest. They try to shut it down, but we're still here now. Truth don't die, it multiplies. You can't cage what never lies. Turn it up, hear the voices in the feed. Hey, question everything they want you to believe. What? From the silence to the raw, we ignite. Yeah, stand tall, bring the dark into the light. We are the truth in the static, loud and unchained, breaking the silence. Yeah, we're calling the name. Through the fire, through the noise, we don't fade. Eternal voices, never buried, never tamed. Yeah, signal never dies. Truth lives on.
Welcome back, everybody, to EA Truth Radio. I'm Joshua Cummins. You already know the guest, Christine Bish.
Bish, don't church it up.
I did it so you would get the reaction, and I got it. So fantastic. Just a reminder that EA Truth Radio is brought to you by EternalAffairsMedia.com. The website, again, is EternalAffairsMedia.com. So don't forget to go over there and check it out. You can also check out my website for my network, because I have another network that I own and work at, and it's called Revolver Broadcasting. So if you would check out my website, revolverbroadcasting.com, I'd really, really love it and appreciate it. Now, if you guys haven't already hit the like button, I would encourage you to do so. Make sure that you guys are already subscribed or followed, depending upon the platform you're viewing or listening on. Make sure that you've hit the notification bell so you know exactly when we're on, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're not, then what are you doing with your life? And also make sure that you're sharing this content, because sharing is in fact caring. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. All right. Miss Christine, the woman of the hour. This is the reason we're here. So you can forget about me for a little bit. We're going to ask you some questions. And Y'all, she's running for a seat that's been long held by crooks, right?
Well, the whole state of California has been held by crooks. But out in California, we have Prop 50. And that was the redistricting scheme from Gavin Newsom to get even with Texas for redistricting, even though Texas was sued and forced to redistrict. But, that was the excuse here. I am one of the few candidates, Republican candidates, who benefited from Prop 50. So this was kind of held by a Republican that left the Republican Party and became an independent and went to a different district. So we're holding on to it. And for the other Republicans out there, the new district looks like an elephant. And we cannot surrender the elephant to the left. If you don't need any other motivation, we can't let them have the elephant district.
That's right. Hey,
Yes.
and with that, just like our opening song, right? The truth won't die.
No.
Applies. So let's dive right into it, shall we? Because I got some questions here for you. And first one is, how does I'm going to go into faith-based stuff here at first.
Yes.
How does your Christian faith shape your approach to public policy and leadership?
Truth. It's all about truth. And, how does it shape it? It guides it. It commands it. It's, we don't make deals. We don't negotiate where there is no room to negotiate. I can't sacrifice my values, what I believe, what I know is true for donations or for what's popular. Our Constitution, our Bible, what guides us, it's people try and reinterpret it. But the truth is the truth, and we can't change it, not for what's popular, for money, or for favor.
Absolutely. It's right there in black and white and sometimes red, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's the red that makes that black and white shine through. Whether it's the blood of Christ or blood of our soldiers, the blood of our children, it's what makes that black and white shine through.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And can you share specific examples of how your beliefs have influenced difficult decisions in your career or community work?
I can, and this is going to be hard for me to talk about, is in May 2022, my oldest daughter, she passed away because of her fentanyl addiction.
Sorry to hear that.
And it hurt. She made the choices, and this is part of that accepting responsibility. She made the choices that cost her her life. Now, politicians, in my opinion, they set made it easy for the drugs to come across our border. They were plentiful. They were easy to get. So I can't blame it just on the politicians that made it easy, made it cheap, because ultimately, whatever was going on with her, she made the choice to do the drugs. And when it first happened, I was running for office, and a friend of mine who's in the party, high up in the party, the Republican Party, she said, "Chris, you're coming out publicly about this, and, aren't you embarrassed? Aren't you worried about running for office and letting people know what happened to your daughter?" And I said, "No, aren't you embarrassed for even having the nerve to ask me that question? If I won't accept what happened to her and her choices, then how could you want me to run for office?" And that's where my faith and my conviction, I accept that we're all sinners, and this was her flaw. This was what she did. Other people made it easy. So there's plenty of blame to go around. But, that's a hard thing to face as a mother.
It's a very tough lesson.
The truth.
Yeah. But also you did have time with her. And and you can certainly have an attitude of gratitude for that time.
And I have my grandson. My husband and I are in the process of adopting him. because unfortunately, shortly after he was born, his father died because of his drug addiction. And, at 5 years old, we lost Kara. So, yeah, we have Milo. And, hopefully I'll get it right this time.
Definitely will.
Yeah.
Definitely will.
Thank you.
It's always good to hear about grandbabies too.
I have 4 grandbabies, and then baby Alice will be here the second week of May. So we'll have a big announcement in the next, I guess 2 weeks.
Here first.
Grandbaby number 5 will be here, and right now, from what I'm told, her name will be Alice. Her name will be Alice Rose Bish.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
Number 5 too.
Number 5, man. We're just gonna keep racking them up. Babies are beautiful, and everything that comes with them. And I'm not really a baby person. I like them when they start crawling and getting into trouble, digging through stuff, breaking things, and just seeing how their little mind works, going, man, did this apple fall far from the tree? Let's watch.
That's when they're the most interesting, right?
Exactly. It's when they start getting creative and how their little brains work. That's the part that's exciting to me. What kind of trouble is this one going to get in?
Well, I got great nieces and nephews, which is kind of like the uncle version of a grandchild, I guess.
Yeah.
Watching them get into things that we had a couple of them live with us for 2 years, my wife and I, and it's just letting them get into things. Cause our eldest niece, she was like, no, don't do that. And I'm like, no, let them. And she's just like, why? And I'm like, cause they have to experience it. They're going to learn.
As long as they're not going to get seriously hurt.
Yeah.
Let them do it.
Yeah. Let them
we made it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Next here we have, let's see here. What role do you believe faith should play in government overall, and where do you draw boundaries?
Okay. Our government was found on religious freedom and the Judeo-Christian values. It says it in our Constitution, in our pledge. It's people forget that freedom of religion is not freedom from religion. So it's everything that we are, everything that we believe. And, there's an old saying that there's no atheist in foxholes.
Right.
It's true. And it's true. And even if you try and deny your faith, as a mother, I remember when we lost Kara that I dropped to my knees. And that's who we are. It's in our time of despair. It's ingrained in us that we drop to our knees. All of us. And that's what our country was built on. They wanted the freedom of religion, and I'm passionate about that. Where I draw the line is there are extremists on all sides. Mm-hmm. So, and our Constitution knew that there were extremists, and that we cannot allow a state religion, because whether you're a born again Christian, Protestant, Catholic, Baptist, what have you, we cannot allow one to become the state sponsored religion.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned
that's where I draw the line.
I'm glad you mentioned it by denomination, because that was the original intent of the religious freedom, was within Christianity.
Right.
And so it sounds like you're a big proponent of the church can influence the state, but the state can't influence the church.
Exactly. And I think part of our the IRS code, where we say churches are nonprofits, but start restricting speech, what they can say politically, when we know during the revolution that it was the pastors, the ministers, the priests in these churches that led their congregations. They took up arms to defend their flock. We know this is part of our history. We fought for this freedom, and to use the IRS or any other code to stifle speech in a church is criminal. It's unconstitutional.
Agreed. There needs to be more done about it for sure.
Well, here I am. Let's get me to Congress, and we'll write that legislation.
Yeah, absolutely. Why? What do you make sure that you're getting out and voting? Yeah. So, what is your stance on the sanctity of life, and what is your policy? What policies would you support, rather, regarding abortion at the federal level?
Okay, so I'm going to start with the second part of that question. Mm-hmm. The Supreme Court has already declared that Roe versus Wade was unconstitutional, right, and they sent it back to the states. That decision has been made. Now, where do I stand on it? I believe life begins at conception and ends at natural death. Now, there are state laws that we're going to have to address. I'm running for federal office. But, one of the things that sticks out to me, at least in California, is there's a famous case. It was the Scott Peterson. And he was found guilty in the death of his wife and his unborn son, Connor. The state of California, in their criminal code, they recognize Connor, who had not been born yet, as a person who had rights. And his dad took away his right to life. And in the criminal code, they recognize that. But in California, at least, I have to speak to what I know, is a woman can choose to abort a baby at any point, and it's a choice. So really what they've done is I think it violates the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. Either an unborn child has rights and is entitled to representation, as Connor was when his father took his life, but they give special, favor to women to decide not to keep their baby. And in California, even more monstrous, they're trying to pass a law, and they probably will here in the California legislature, to make it legal to murder your baby up to 28 days after it's born. That's murder.
Yeah, but it's 100%. There's you can't get around it. Not even for non-believing Christian, not non-Christian folks. That floors me.
It's insane. That's infanticide. That's insane to me. So I think what's going to happen is legislation, and we're going to have to argue it, is not when does life begin or even the Christian answer to that, but it's already been defined in California under the criminal code. There is precedence already set. So what needs to be determined is based on, and every state, I believe, has this. If a woman's in an accident and, car accident, and the baby dies, the driver of the other vehicle, if they're at fault, could be charged with vehicular manslaughter for causing the death of that unborn child. So I think the bigger question here is, which babies have rights? Only the ones that are wanted? You have rights? Because this is an equal protection. Either all babies have rights or none do.
Yeah, and I thought most Californians were about equality.
Well, I thought most Democrats said we all have to be on an equal playing field, equal outcome. Yeah. Well, that's DEI, equal outcome. So if the equal outcome is you get charged with murder if a baby dies in an accident, or, if the baby's life is taken, then, it shouldn't be up for grabs.
Yeah. It makes you wonder how they see it as different.
It's an unpopular, and I can't say that I don't empathize with women, and the exceptions that we talk about, but I have plenty of friends of mine who have children that were the product of rape, and none of them wish they never had their baby.
No,
none of them wish they never had it. So, this is a uncomfortable decision This is an uncomfortable discussion that needs to happen. And politicians on the Republican side, they avoid it because their priority is getting elected.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, who pays the price.
What's right is always uncomfortable, though. Almost
Whatever,
always.
not for me.
But for a lot of folks, it's almost always
For a lot of folks. Well, and if it's uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable on the other side as well. It's acknowledging that this is a person. I had, carried my kids full term, and when they were born, they were human beings, not puppies.
Right. That's how that works.
Yeah.
Well, and I have two family members that were a product of rape, but they're some of the best people you ever know. So I mean, and one of them's got the biggest heart that I've known in anyone. Loves her kids very, very much. I mean, she's just awesome. But yeah, let's go ahead. Talking about family specifically, and what are your views on marriage and family, and how should government support or strengthen them?
Well, I married my high school sweetheart. He actually took me to my senior prom. And this year, August, will be 39 years. And we have 4 kids. Both of our parents were, we had one set of parents. You say, I do, and you don't take it lightly. Because, the truth is, marriages happen in church and pretty parks, and that's not where divorce happens. So you got to be choosy about who you ask and who you say yes to. And the government, this is where the libertarian in me comes out, because marriage is a religious bond. It's a religious commitment. The government shouldn't be involved in it. Now I see where the IRS code comes in, because, having children and growing your family, they want to encourage that. So that's where, we start getting credit for being married and credit for having children. And they try and support that and get us all to get out there successfully breeding after we get married. But it's a fine line. And when the state starts changing the definition as it's dictated in the Bible, then we start having issues. Because now we did violate the separation of church and state. Marriage in the Bible is between one man and one woman. Now, if you want to do civil unions, you call, people of the same sex, whatever they're going to do. But the biblical definition does not fit.
Yeah, and with the civil union, they should get all the same tax benefits and things like that, right?
If that's what they're going to do, if that's what the government's going to do in recognizing that, but we can't have it interfere, because there is, and the left doesn't like it when you point out the hypocrisy of the separation of church and state.
Oh yeah, yeah. They certainly don't.
Well, you got to flip the script, and Republicans are not good at flipping the script. I'm the exception.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I said I'm the exception.
Well, it's good to know there's some exceptions out there, because few and far in between. I know that a lot of times I turn on my TV and I hear some congressmen and some senators talking, and I'm going, really?
Yeah.
It's like, give me your ear real quick. I want to yell in it.
Well, that's because they're focused on the next election, not what's right.
Mm-hmm. I love to hear that, doing what's right, but not necessarily what's popular.
Well, it's, I think if I do the right thing, I truly believe that if I do the right thing and I do it for the right reasons, when I'm elected, I'll be reelected. And it's up to the voters to make that decision and to hold me accountable. And that's where our biggest problem in politics is right now, is people get in, They don't do the right thing. They don't keep their word, but people forget that your vote matters. And I'm an election integrity hawk. So with that, it's your vote does matter. We're trying to fix our elections. We know there are some problems, and but if we do it in a landslide, they can't cheat.
Right.
Right? So everybody get out there, whether you're voting for me or not, your vote matters. And believe it or not, whether you're voting for me or not, your vote matters to me because we all have a voice.
I'll tell you, if we could pass that SAVE Act, I don't think a Democrat would ever win again, honestly. But
yeah, Fetterman would. He's coming around.
Yeah. Turns out Democrats with brain injuries are not half bad.
He's one of those guys got kicked in the head or fell down a well and she, her eyes crossed. Then she got kicked in the head by a mule and her eyes went back. So that was a Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, I knew exactly where that was from.
So we got to have fun in all this, but you got to remember the where we're at. Robert Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, by today's standards, they would be Republicans.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And so, people sometimes they're Democrats just because their family has always been Democrats. And there may be one little issue, because we have Republicans who have one little issue that, we've got some liberal Republicans out there, but they stay for whatever that one issue is. So I'm careful not to fall into that whole, liberal thing about labeling people.
Yeah. And
don't put me in a box in what you think a Republican is, because we have a platform and I believe in the platform, but that doesn't mean that all the people who are in my party are good people. That doesn't automatically, mean you have morals or character. And I'm careful not to do that with Democrats, is because we don't know really what's in their heart. And, we saw this with the World Trade Center. Mm. When you were running into a burning building, nobody checked to see how they were registered to vote.
It's true.
It's when it really matters. So, there are the liberals and the extremists. I don't protect them at all.
Yeah.
But
they spend a lot of time on TikTok.
We have a lot there. That's a lot to unpack. So don't put me in a box, because none of us wants to be put into, a category. I'm a human and I respect other humans. I respect other opinions. And if I'm wrong, you can reach me at bishforcongress.com and tell me why I'm wrong. Convince me to change my mind, because I can be educated. I can be taught. And if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. Convince me why I'm wrong. And then we'll have that discussion.
Yeah. Staying malleable. That's important, right?
Exactly. Stop learning, you stop. You're probably in a box somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also what I'm hearing is it sounds like your intentions are to be consequential.
Yes. I'm not going there to waste my time. I'm a 60-year-old grandma. I could be retiring, but I have grandkids. Baby Alice will be here soon. I won't be here. My husband and I won't be here always to protect them. And I know with my grandson, Milo, his mommy and daddy aren't here to protect them. So the rest of my time on this planet, I have to do what I can to make a difference, because the politicians that I've met, even the people who are running against me, I don't think they're prepared for the fight that I'm prepared for, and to make the decisions and fight for them.
You kind of remind me of someone else. I could have the nicest life to go out there golfing and have the nicest life, spending time with my family. But I chose this. I didn't
even think about that, because I'm talking about me. And, the choices that I've made, and I could be selfish and live out my time on this planet and put away for my grandkids. So, they have a comfortable life, but There's more to it than that. And this is how we got into this mess. You know, we think about education, right? Yes, people, you know, we need school reform because kids aren't learning to read. Well, my school, the school my kids go to is good. I'm not worried about across town. Well, you know, across town is where there is, you know, crime and kids aren't learning to read and all the consequences of that. Because if you can't read, you can't do basic math, and quite honestly, if you don't know what bathroom to use, you're probably not going to get a good job. And if you're so confused that you don't know what bathroom to use, you will never have the ability to pick up a weapon and defend this nation.
Mm-hmm.
So the decisions, the things that I am fighting for, all come down to national security, and not just my security, but the security for our future.
I heard you, talking about in the past, school choice.
Yes.
How do you ensure that parents retain primary authority over their children's education?
Well, that argument needs to be made because of the 14th Amendment. Parents are the caregivers for their children unless it's gone through the courts. Period. It's part of the Equal Protection Clause and the 14th Amendment. So parents decide until parents make bad decisions, and that's what courts are for. That's not what teachers are for, or school boards, or principals and school counselors, and anybody else who got a degree who thinks they know better what's good for your children. And I'll challenge that, and I have. I know at my local school, especially the high school, they used to quake when I would come. And I remember, oh gosh, there was one young man, I'm not going to say his name, and he grew up with my boys. They all went to elementary school all the way through high school together, and he got in some trouble. And he got taken to the vice principal's office and said, you're in trouble. We're going to take away your ability to walk the stage for graduation because of whatever he did, which I didn't think was that horrible. He should have been punished, but not work all the way through high school and be able to walk the stage and have that taken away from him for one mistake.
Right.
So the vice principal says to him, "What are you going to do about it?" He says, "Well, I'm going to call Mrs. Bish."
The room goes silent and everybody was like, the bungholes tightened.
I wasn't there, but I know he walked the stage. He did get detention and there were some other things going on. So, at least at the local high school district, my name carries a little bit of weight. I think they just didn't want me to go there.
Well, if you carry any part of that over in the Congress, then yeah, you should be a shoo-in.
Yeah, they'll start locking their doors because I'll only be representing the people in the 3rd congressional district. But if you're in the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, somewhere in Ohio or Michigan or whatever it is, and your representative's not returning your calls and at least telling you why they, aren't going to help you or don't have the ability to help you or, at least send you a form letter, I have no problem go beating on somebody's doors. Ask my neighbors.
Well, not only that, but you spreading the truth, and the truth spreads like wildfire, regardless of how many locked doors there are. Because I was reading about Paul and Barnabas today, and they went out and they told the truth regardless of consequences, and then it just kept going. And then they even stoned Paul. They stoned him. They thought he was dead, and then he just gets up the next day and goes out and does it again.
They've thought they've taken me down a few times, but I'm like a cockroach. A nuclear blast won't take me down.
We need fighters in Congress.
Yeah,
darn.
We do.
How would you address a lot of folks' concerns about curriculum content that conflicts with Christian values?
It shouldn't be there. And if we're going to respect this separation of church and state, as the left likes to tell us,
Mhm.
then you can't teach something that opposes Christianity. Remember, it's freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. And if we're going to go down, I personally think that the Bible, the Ten Commandments, those should be in schools. The greatest history book ever written was the Bible. And you learn not only history, but geography, ancient history. All of that aside, in California, I know math is at about 29% proficiency. Reading is at about 39% proficiency to grade level. That we have students going to college who are going into debt, and they can't pass basic math or English. So they're paying to learn what they didn't learn in elementary school or high school. So with that, our biggest problem is not religion or the lack of religion. It's, they can't read their own birth certificate, if you will.
Hmm.
They can't do basic math. And, McDonald's, they've gone to all pictures. You don't even need to make change because the machine does it for you. We need to teach people how to think.
Yeah.
And a basic moral compass. Religion is built into our government, into our criminal system. There's no problem with teaching children, regardless. Remember, we have to do it without a denomination.
Yeah.
Right? But you can't deny it. It's the basis of our civilization. So it's not telling kids, pray, but understand that this is how our country was formed. You start taking out part of the equation, it doesn't make sense. And I talk about this, and I'm just going to deviate for a minute. When we talk about they're removing statues of people they say are racist, right? Or changing the name of buildings because of Robert E. Lee or, Thomas Jefferson. And even going forward as far as Martin Luther King, right?
Yeah.
If you take away what you find distasteful, then you take away what was meaningful about the opposition. So if anybody at that time period, let's say Martin Luther King, children are told, what he did for civil rights and what he fought for. Mm-hmm. But if you erase the opposition, then you take away his relevance.
Absolutely.
Right? So instead of, my daughter was brilliant in this, my daughter Jackie, she lives not too far from me. She said, Mom, what made sense to me is you don't take down a statue if you oppose that person because they did something that qualified them to have a statue in their honor, is you put up a bigger statue that casts a shadow on it. You don't erase history. You build up what you believe is right. And I love that. Imagine a history of Robert E. Lee, and then you put up a statue of somebody else that was more important to you, that casts a shadow on whatever it was that he was relevant. You don't erase them.
Yeah, a bigger one of Grant.
Right. I mean, but, whoever it is, history changes, who's important at that time, right?
And we got to stop looking at it through a modern day lens for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, they're going to do this to us when we put Trump's face on Mount Rushmore. You know that, right?
Because that day is definitely approaching. He's already got his name on half of the buildings in DC.
Exactly.
Get his face on the mountain and it's South Dakota.
Gosh, can you see their heads spinning now? Doesn't it look like a cartoon? Just a vision in your head. I like, even if it doesn't happen, I like saying it because it's funny.
Oh yeah, well, and you know that there are some people out there that's going to view this later on and be like, they're
going to barbecue me for it, but they wouldn't have voted for me anyhow.
I love when people hate watch because that means they're still watching.
It's free rent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get the penthouse suite often.
Yeah. Let me kick up my feet. Where's my drink? No.
I love it. Okay.
Okay, so just continuing with the last question from about schools. What is your response to the growing tension between the parental rights overall and the public school systems?
Well, we know schools went down after the Department of Education was put in. Anytime we centralize power outside of the military, quality goes down and there's no competition. Now, I was the Sacramento area director for the Educational Freedom Initiative. And what that was, it was authored by Dr. Milton Friedman. He wrote the GI Bill. And at the time, it was something that I wanted. I wanted desperately to give every child the opportunity to go to a different school, different than a public school. And we're already paying for public school. But what I found was that the private schools and the parochial schools, they didn't want to give the government any little foot, any more than they had to start directing curriculum or what was going to be taught, what the values were of that school. That's why Hillsdale College does not accept the GI Bill or any government-backed loans for students to go there. It's a slippery slope. Mm-hmm. So on that one, you start thinking about it. Well, I want, and this is how we got in trouble. I want this for my kids. I want this for the kids in my neighborhood. I want the kids for in my district, in my county, in my state. But what about all the other kids? We have public education for a reason. What we need to do is fund public education, not by property taxes, but equally in each state, that every kid is given the opportunity. And I think we need to start re-examining unions in schools, because the unions are about the teachers, not about the kids, and they have taken over. If you want to belong to a union, you can, but I don't think we should make that a condition of employment anywhere in this country. But what I absolutely believe is we need to pay teachers more, because we can't attract the best, the brightest, and the people who have a passion to educate if we're paying them not enough.
Yeah, and not to mention decentralization of the education system would cause the schools to compete for the student, as opposed to the student having to try to go, I don't know which school to go to because I don't know which one's the best, and then but I'm stuck going to this one because it's closest to my house.
Right. Well, and that's where it's opening it up, and where the unions aren't controlling the ed code. And we want to see more parents involved, but the truth is, and this is another one of those hard truths, we're on our second, third generation of people graduating from public schools who cannot get a job. They're not employable. They can't read. They can't write. They don't have a basic education. We already have a welfare state. Mm-hmm. They did that with the desegregation of schools. Is we know that Black families were at that time often a lot stronger than Caucasian families.
Thriving.
They were thriving, and they were better educated. They had less resources, but were dependent on, history and there weren't as many distractions, I guess it would be a simplistic way of saying it.
Well, and I would say that independent study pushes for independent study causes better education.
It does. And we see this, it's really an economic thing as opposed to a racial thing. For me, I never went to the same school twice. My parents moved up until the point that I got to high school, never went to the same school twice. So a lot of it was reading. It was, learning history. I'm off 2 generations. My grandparents, not great or great grandparents, my grandparents were all born in the 1890s. And my parents were in their 40s when I was born. So I'm off almost 2 generations and was raised differently. You're bored, read a book. Oh, wait, you don't have time to be bored, because if you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean, unless you're reading, unless you're doing work, right?
Yeah.
And until your work is done, there's no time to go play. And, that playtime that we had then, it was problem solving. We weren't supervised. You were late if the street lights were on.
That's right.
And,
home until the streetlights are on, though.
yeah, exactly. Don't come home until they're on. Exactly. But we learn so much.
Mm-hmm.
And, for most of us who grew up that way, your cousins were your first best friends.
Mm-hmm.
And they would rat you out.
Immediately. Well, I unfortunately grew up going to the public school system here in Indiana. Not fantastic, honestly. Even being in the AP courses didn't help much. But I quickly realized that I was going to learn more outside of school. Hung out with one of my friends in particular. Well, I won't mention his name here because he may be embarrassed to for whatever reason, but because he's a nervous guy. But anyhow, him and I used to just sit and study for fun.
Yeah.
Learn history, play chess, get better at that, strategy, all that stuff, because the independent study, I found I learned more doing that than I ever did sitting in a classroom being told to sit still.
Charlie Kirk told us that. He made it evident to the world. Not everybody is meant to sit behind a desk, but we want to give everyone that opportunity. What I want to see for public education is that we do fund it, that we pay teachers, that we want to attract the best, the brightest, where they can afford to live, afford to have a family, and still follow their passion, not settle for the people who want to program or groom kids. They have an ulterior motive for wanting to be in a classroom. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he just tried to assassinate the president. Some guy that had an ulterior motive for being in a classroom.
Yeah.
We saw that here in Sacramento. Gabriel Gripe, he was the communist teacher, had pictures of Mao and gave kids extra credit for going to protests. And, he was a real winner.
Sounds like. Goodness. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about governance for a moment. Okay. So governance and integrity, of course. How do you ensure that your decisions in office reflect both constitutional principles and moral convictions?
You know what? That's up to the people who elect me. I can tell you what I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to do what I believe is right. And if I don't live up to my word, then the people who voted me in should vote me out. This whole election, it's applying for the job. And every 2 years, because we do have a term limit, every 2 years, my butt can be kicked out. And if I don't do the job, I should be. And that's where civic responsibility comes in. Not just, they've been in office forever and, my lights turn on, I have running water. So, just let her stay. Come on, guys, got to get involved. Hold people accountable. Or at least demand answers. That's what I do. I consider the consequences of who I vote for. And it's not based on the critter that's associated with my party. Yeah. It's based on the individual. And, if that individual, regardless of party, is the person I think is the better candidate, then that's who I'm going to vote for. Because you know what? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is running up Maha for a reason.
Yeah. He got changed.
That person for that job.
Yeah. He got Frito-Lay to change their formula.
Yeah.
How do you, without him, well, that actually kind of floors me. Just real quick, the bag actually says now chemical free. What was there chemicals in there for to begin with? But anyway,
yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
yeah, a whole other bag of chips, so to speak. You kind of answered my two other questions within that. So you summed it up really well. So I'll just say thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So on key policies, so you've highlighted homelessness. How would you address it in a way that balances compassion with accountability?
Well, I was homeless. I lived in a car, and it was through no fault of my own. My parents made bad decisions, and there was no safety net. Not really. When you finally got a place to live, then you qualified for food stamps. And that was only short-lived until you went off to the next place. And it wasn't all bad. Dad was just a special kind of stupid. He was the most brilliant loser I ever met. We would be, top of the heap, living very, very comfortably. And then he'd screw it up and, back to living in a U-Haul truck. And it was just that cycle. So, I have different opinions on that. Kids are stuck with the decisions of whatever adult they are in their care. But I turned out okay. And the good and the bad, the good and the bad help define who I am. I'm a fighter, but I can walk into any room, whether it's feeding the homeless or into, black tie and evening gowns, and I'm comfortable either place. I can talk to anybody because I value people. And that's what this whole thing about. It's about personal responsibility, deciding who you are, what you believe, and taking responsibility for yourself and deciding what you want your life to be. And this is huge. If you think about it, I'm telling you that I was a homeless little girl at one point, living in a car, living in a U-Haul truck. Mm-hmm. Now I am a candidate for the United States Congress. Where else could anybody have that American dream and do it on their own? J.D. Vance, he had a horrible upbringing. Mm-hmm. He is one assassination away from President of the United States. And I only say that because we've had 3 tries at him, at President Trump. It's a crude reality.
Yeah. What would you enact differently that would that could help out with that?
We need to change education, right? It's about personal responsibility, and parents have some responsibility in this as well. Making sure your kids do get to school. Holding them accountable. Your kids need to be at school. They need to be, dressed and prepared. That means in your desk when the bell rings, not mom slept in and, Johnny's 10 minutes late again, disrupting the class. So there has to be personal accountability and responsibility. And a lot of times kids, they're the victims of what adults decide to do. But when you start raising the bar, people will step up. Yeah. And it can be done with love without punishment.
Yeah.
And we're in a Jerry Springer society, if you will, even though he's not on anymore. Everybody has their own false indignation and outrage. Well, guess what? You're not that important. There's other people too. And that's part of that selfish DEI victim, going against everybody. How about trying to get along? Everybody's happier that way. The bully is a bully because they're lonely.
Yep.
Because they've been abused. They're not born, they're made.
Absolutely. Because they're experiencing it at home.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you start the accountability at home, you would push for policies that would push for accountability at home to start with, and it sounds like that would take care of.
It would take care of a lot of things, but and then we go back to school because everything, it's a big cycle. It's related. So instead of teaching, Johnny, you're a victim because of the color of your skin, and Bobby, you're a monster by the color of your skin, and Susie, because you come from, this economic background, you're going to grow up and, have 3 kids by 3 different dads and determine it. How about teach everybody, start at a young age, that you're beautiful just the way God made you. We see this with DEI where they say, you were supposed to be a boy, you were supposed to be a girl, so we're going to hide it from your parents and start them out at a young age, lying, keeping secrets, confusing who they are. And when you think about, you dissect that, it's God was wrong. He made you wrong. But with drugs and lies and surgery, we can correct God's mistake. Imagine how that damages a kid, how it damages an adult, that you were defective. We start out saying, let's find out who the best person you are. Maybe you're not the best at math, but you're incredible at art or history or science. We all have a gift. And if we put education around focusing on finding out what's wonderful about this human being, we need you to read. We need you to do your best. And we're going to give the
Oh.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Give that dog a snack. Okay. So it's about finding out who's the best person that you could be. What are your gifts? My husband grew up on a farm. Now he works for one of the world's largest technology companies, has at least a dozen patents, and, can't go into the details on that, but I can tell you he didn't learn that milking cows. And it was going through a school that recognized how brilliant he really was and gave him the tools. Not that being a farm, milking cows and, bucking hay was a bad thing, but that wasn't his suit in life.
Yeah.
And a lot of the technology that we use today, you can thank James Bish for that. Google him and you'll see what he's been up to.
I will definitely. I'm big time into technology. It's surrounding me right now. So what specific steps would you take to reduce taxes without cutting essential services?
Well, actually, I want to increase the essential services, and that's by rooting out the waste, the fraud, and the abuse. We're getting rid of USAID. We're finding, hospice homes where nobody ever dies, and daycares where babies never went to.
Yeah.
So, you start weeding that out. I know in Sacramento County, the poverty rate for a single adult is roughly $30,000 a year. The average senior here is receiving between $1,200 and $2,000 a month from Social Security. So they're not even at the poverty rate. So when we start talking about seniors, right, as we get rid of the waste and people who are abusing the system, we should be giving that into the people's money that was wasted. Start, not rewarding them, but reimbursing them. And at minimum, across this country, getting our seniors at least up to the poverty level. They paid in. And we know now that the Social Security system trust fund was never a trust fund. It was a slush fund. Mm-hmm. And it got raided by politicians on both sides of the aisle. But they were told this was your safety net. This was your retirement. We have to make good on those commitments. But then for our generation and younger, is start training them independent savings and to get us away from the safety net. That doesn't mean eliminate it. It's to start reprogramming how our society works.
Yeah.
Right? And we've got 2 generations to work through that, right? Because it takes time. Not everything is instant, guys. And it's retraining the generations to come on how that's going to work. So we're talking about seniors, but in that, I'm also talking about education. We know that the Leering Center didn't have kids and wasn't educating kids. They were getting Head Start money and daycare money. Well, now that we're not paying out all those criminals, why don't we start getting it back to the schools and get it at an even playing field? Because what it costs to educate a kid in California is not, or even in Sacramento versus LA, based on the local economy, is different. But when we start investing in our kids, in our schools, and making sure that we're addressing the basics, which is reading, writing, math, science, real science, not the made up stuff, because there's only two sexes. It's not gender. It's male and female.
Right.
We got to be truthful.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like you want that money to, so you just kind of touched on education again. You want that money to follow the student.
I want the money to follow the student, but I don't want to abandon schools, abandon disadvantaged neighborhoods. Because remember, I used to live in one of those disadvantaged neighborhoods. And where, looking back, I can tell you that was asbestos and lead paint at that school.
My elementary school had both of those. Yep.
Exactly. Most of them did, the older ones. You just don't lick the wall or chew on the wood, and you were probably okay.
It was also right next to a Coke plant, so that
exactly.
not the good soda kind. No,
exactly. The meth lab around the corner.
Yeah, pretty much.
And we don't want to get away from neighborhood schools, but we need to empower those neighborhood schools. Instead of abandoning them, we need to build them up and get rid of the middle management. It is get into administrators that are there to keep the business end running and hire the best people. Because we know there's a lot of DEI and other unfavorable methods of hiring teachers. But how do you attract the best and the brightest when you don't pay them enough?
Right.
We have to invest in our kids.
Get back to the meritocracy.
Investing in the best teachers.
Get back to that meritocracy.
Exactly. And, I'm going to take it in the next step. And this is a family that's our personal wealth and lifestyle are built around technology because virtue of what my husband's career was, right? I don't think there should be computers in schools before 6th grade.
Yeah, because it makes them dumb.
Yeah. You get enough of that at home with TVs and iPads and video games and all that. They need to learn how to pick up a book. They need to learn how to write with a pencil and a piece of paper, how to color, understand, even when they're little and they're drawing, that's when they start learning about proportions. They start out with big heads and stick bodies. And it changes as they get older and they learn proportion. And, we need to start them out with the basics. I do not know anybody who learned to be a carpenter who didn't start out with a hammer and nail and a handsaw. They didn't start out with a drill and a nail gun and a table saw and jump right into it. You need to learn the very basics, and then you move up.
Yeah, it gives you a healthy respect for the next step.
Well, and a full understanding of how things work. I remember my mother, she was a grocery clerk. And she could keep track of all of the groceries in her head. She could keep a running total when she was ringing things up. And she was on an old penny punch, right? And then you pull the handle and it would add the next one, but it's what she did. And I remember she was here with me and the electricity went out. And the clerk at the grocery store couldn't ring us up because they couldn't scan anything. And I remember my mother, and she was just a little tiny thing. I'm only 5'3". She was like 5 foot. And she said, "Oh, you can just do this." And she grabbed a piece of paper and she started writing everything down and pulling it and pulling it and pulling it. And she says, "This is what I owe you. And here's an extra buck for the tax." And then she threw the money at the girl, grabbed her groceries and left. And I was an adult when this happened. And I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
But who can do that now? They can't count back change. They just say, here's your change, and hands you a pile.
Yep. I experienced that. I worked at a license branch for 10 years, and I worked with, unfortunately, a lot of my cohorts couldn't, they needed the computer in front of them in order to know how much change they need to give back. I'm like, tell me how much. Okay. How much did they give you? Okay. $10.15. Pretty easy. They'd be like, what? Like, yeah, it's pretty simple math. Like, come on.
But you know what? When you earn the money, it's more important. So my neighbor has mandarin trees, right? And they hang over the fence, and he's okay with the kids picking the stuff that's hanging over the fence, right?
Yeah.
So my granddaughter, Riley, boy, that apple did not fall far from this tree. Every time she comes here, she gets a grocery bag. She goes out there and she picks as many as she can, and then she grabs my grandson Milo. They're the same age. They're both 9. And her older brother Carson, and they go door to door and they sell those things. And Riley can tell you to the penny. The boys are just there for security and labor. Riley can tell you to the penny how much they earned.
Little entrepreneur already.
Yeah, she's a hustler.
That's the real American spirit right there. Entrepreneur.
Right there.
I've got a hot button topic that continues to be a hot button topic here in America, and that's immigration.
Yes.
How do you plan to balance border security with treating people humanely?
Okay. Well, I think our border is pretty well secure, and it's continued to move forward. People aren't crossing here. Now, on this one, gets a little controversial. Because remember, I said children are the victims of the stupid decisions of the adults in whom care they are in.
Yep.
I was one of them. We have a lot of people here that were invited here by bad politicians for whatever their agenda was. Now, the adults, they made those poor decisions because they know what was going on. Mm-hmm. The adults knew. That's why they were paying people to get them here. They know what was going on. Kids, that's a different decision or a different discussion. So with that, there was a man here. He was from Istanbul, and he was brought here. I remember hearing the story. I think he was like 9 years old when he was brought here, and his parents overstayed their visa. He doesn't remember anything about Istanbul. He didn't speak the language, didn't know anybody there. He was raised as an American, even spoke English without an accent. Should he have had a path to citizenship? Absolutely not. Not unless he was willing to join the military and earn that citizenship.
Right.
Because he was still here illegally. But in that case, there should have been a path to a green card. The ability to say that I'm not on the government dole, I'm working, I'm supporting myself. Now, this guy was married and had kids, American kids. So I don't believe in anchors. But you want to be here? He was fully assimilated. There should have been a path to a green card. No criminal record, self-sufficient, a good citizen, because he didn't have a choice. The adults that came here, and unless you can prove that you were escaping something horrible, and it needs to be real, because there's a whole lot of horrible here. And I'm getting, I know some of the liberals get upset with me, but any American kid, if your parents do really stupid stuff and end up in jail, other than welfare, there's no special privileges. Your parents don't get to not go to jail because they have children.
That's right.
So the same way with illegal aliens, you broke the law, you need to leave. If the kid was born here, well, you know what? Do you have a sponsor here? Do you have a family member that's here? You want that kid desperately to stay here? Well, that's a decision you have to make as the parent. If this child's entitled to stay here, then who are you going to give custody of that child to?
Right.
Even if it's the state. because there are consequences to our actions. And the truth is, in the United States, we have to take care of our own first, and then what's left over is what we use for other people. Charity begins at home. So as long as we have American children, American seniors, American soldiers living on the street, we do not have charity for more. And that's a whole nother discussion, and that's the drug and alcohol addiction. Not everybody that's homeless is there because they're just down on their luck.
Yeah. Some
The majority of them made the decision, and there is help for those who want it. It may not be what you want, but there is help.
Yeah.
And as we free up more of our resources by, forcing people into help. I know someone personally, I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I do know someone personally who is on drugs, who lives on the street right here in Sacramento County, and this person has a $3 million trust fund. And this person, I often see him, it's a him, on the freeway begging for money or out in front of the grocery store begging for money, because the conditions of getting to that trust fund are that you are clean and sober. There is money to get to the trust fund if you are clean and sober. The trust fund will pay for you to be clean and sober, but this person doesn't want that.
That's where that lack of biblical education could have.
Well, no, he very well, he knows, but he's hooked on drugs.
Wow.
And if you talk to him, absolutely brilliant mind. I mean, I never knew anyone that could do math the way this person did. He could tell you, I'm in real estate, and he could tell you if you paid, $300,000 for a house and the interest rate was at 6.5% and it's on a 30-year loan, what your house payment would be.
Wow.
In his head. And within pennies. But he found drugs that he liked.
Now, that demon of addiction, it takes a lot of good people, doesn't it?
Right. And it does take a lot of people, but we have bad actors. We have foreign governments who profit off the pain and suffering and the addiction of American citizens. We have politicians who will fight for those bad actors to continue to inflict pain and suffering to, further addiction. Why would you want our border open? Why would you want illegal drugs trafficked? Why would you want children subject to sex trade and all of the horrible things that are happening if you didn't personally profit from it? Let's get down to the truth.
Right.
When you see these people saying, I want an open border, what's in it for you? Because when I say I want a secure border, I want people being treated for drug and alcohol addiction and make it not easy to do it. Because the truth is, my daughter might still be here.
Yeah.
Is when we start holding people accountable to just minimum standards. You know what's in it for me? No other parent has to bury their child. No other child has to wonder, why did mommy and daddy like their drugs more than me?
Yes, that would be wonderful.
It's sobering.
And I'm glad that you spelled it out. Like what is in it for you, where they will deny until the ends of the earth. That
what's in it for you?
Actually,
what do you get out of it?
And we all know it's to line their pockets even more.
Exactly.
Both sad and wrong.
But it's true, and that's the bottom line. So if you're out there, and I'm going to do a shameless pitch on that, I'm running for Congress in California. But no matter where you are in this country, where you are watching this podcast, as a member of Congress, I will be fighting for America, not just California. And I need your help. And that's whether you're sharing on social media. If you can donate, great. That helps us get mail pieces out. We get our mail-in ballots. We have, election season here. And, the ballots go out a month before election day, and then we don't get the total till a month after election day. So, but you can make phone calls, share on social media, send emails, text messages. There's lots you can do if you can't afford to donate. And help me get into Congress because I can live up to my last name.
Standing up for what's right.
Exactly. The campaign slogan is, it's time to send a bish to Congress because I'm just the bish to get things done.
That's right. So I have just a few more questions here. If you got the time, I know
I have time. Let's do it.
Okay. What does protecting the Second Amendment look like in practical terms today?
In practical terms?
Yes, ma'am.
It is the right to keep and bear arms. So unless you've had your constitutional rights taken away, you have the right to keep and bear arms. And I don't want to hear the excuse that it's for hunting. It is not. The Second Amendment was meant for us to be able to defend ourselves against the government and government officials who would take our freedom. So then the conversation goes, well, then do you want a 50 caliber weapon? Well, no, I'm 5'3". Anything that would take ammunition like that, I couldn't lift it. And I can't get it at Walmart. Come on, dude. Well, you don't need a fully automatic weapon. Well, you don't need those fake eyelashes. Doesn't it hurt your eyes trying to blink? Who are you to determine what I need, what I want, and what I believe will keep me safe? But with that, we also have to recognize that with all of our rights comes awesome responsibility. So if I choose to own a weapon, then I am responsible for the safekeeping, the care, and the maintenance of that tool. Just like a car, I am responsible to make sure that the brakes work, that, the steering is good, that, parts aren't duct taped on that are going to come off at 50 miles an hour if I can get it going 50 miles an hour. And it's not a right, but you can own whatever you want. Driving isn't a right, it's a privilege, but you can own anything you want. But with that comes awesome responsibility. And we see this with the First Amendment. You have the right to free speech, but that doesn't mean you get to abuse it by yelling fire in a crowded theater. It's the intent behind that. So you cannot assume everybody who has a right to speak freely wants to do bad things with their speech. You cannot assume everyone who owns a tool, a weapon, a gun, a crossbow,
a tank,
a frozen squirrel, if that's your weapon of choice, that we're going to do bad things, because we've seen people do bad things with cars, with knives, with shovels, with ropes, even with their bare hands.
Yeah, look at the UK.
Exactly.
I'm reminded, I can't remember which president it is, but there's a president that they, at a time when pirates were hitting our shores quite a bit, and they went to the president and said, Mr. President, can we own cannons to fight these pirates off? And he said, I'm not your king.
Yeah. And if I could have a cannon in the front yard, I'd be so down for it, but my husband would probably get upset because it would ruin the lawn.
Well, in Indiana, there are a few houses. There's one. There's three within my vicinity that all have small non-functioning cannons, but I'm sure that they could be made functional if they needed to be.
Hey, you know what? I know what a potato gun looks like.
That's right.
Yeah, you could do a lot of damage with it.
You absolutely can.
And have you ever been to a batting cage and got hit with one of those things? It hurts.
A lot.
Yes. So the projectile does not have to come from gunpowder.
No, it does not.
A wheel and some rubber can do some serious damage.
It sure can.
Yeah, exactly. I had a wrist rocket. Get those itchy balls off the, maple trees and the sycamore trees. Get a boy without a shirt on. You could do some damage.
Or you could be a guy named David and have a sling and
a rock.
Yeah. Just one stone is one time. I guess they don't learn their lesson from that.
Yeah. Well, they don't read it.
Lack of knowledge, right? Um, so, uh, firearms also get carried by our law enforcement. So how would you support law enforcement while also addressing concerns about justice and fairness?
More training. More training. We have my opponent. His name is Ami Bera, Democrat. He was all about defund the police. I've got a picture of him. One of my campaign people took on a Memorial Day weekend where he's taken a knee. But he claims to support law enforcement, so that's a whole nother issue. But when you are going to hold law enforcement accountable for doing their job, defund them, prosecute them for doing their job, or forcing, we saw this with COVID, forcing the senior members out. So you have inexperienced officers. It's just like a football team. Mm-hmm. We have first, second, and third string for a reason. And the first string is usually the people with the most talent, the most education, the most knowledge about the sport. And then you have second and third, and they get a little bit of playtime, but they come up in the ranks. And this is the same thing. We see it in military, but we have people, elected officials, that say they don't want law enforcement, of course, until their dogs start mating unauthorized, then they call 911. It's you don't call the gang members at the edge of the street, you call the police. But right. We need to make sure that they are paid, that they are held accountable, but they need the training and the resources, and that's where I come in. Congress controls the purse, and it's making sure that money gets back to the states, back to the local, the county and local governments, to make sure that we can pay the wages that attract the most honorable, skilled, and educated people out there to do that job. They put their life on the line. They need to be compensated for that.
Rigorous physical standards as well, because I don't know, sometimes you can't turn on an episode of Cops anymore, but if you were to,
I look for people I know.
Yeah, but a lot of times you see a lot of these police officers nowadays, and they look like they've had more donuts than I ever have.
Well, that goes back to Maha and the diet and the quality of food. It's what are you getting from the grocery store? You don't even know. And if you've ever gone to a school, I challenge everybody listening, go to your local school, even if it's after school, and say, hey, what's in the free lunch? Or what's in that free breakfast? Because it's usually prepackaged garbage that's got more chemicals than actual food products.
I just think it would be really nice to see some officers that actually can jump fences, because they're in the Midwest anyway, a little further and fewer in between.
But sometimes it's that's who else is going to put their life on the line?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It just
great opportunity for ex-military people who understand discipline, and especially with the ranks of the people that are going through the military now, as they become civilians, they work their way out of military service. Man, we're going to have an opportunity to have the most healthy and hey, I struggle with weight myself, but the most healthy, dedicated, educated, disciplined people who will be coming into law enforcement. It's our job now to make sure that we fund local law enforcement, whether it's at the state or county, city level, that those funds are there so that we can attract the best, the brightest, the healthiest, and the smartest.
And push for then you're pushing those higher standards, and then the more physical fit will come, right?
It's all comes full circle.
They should feel shameful for not staying at least somewhat fit, because they are chasing criminals after all.
Well, and there are people that have office jobs. I can tell you, I wasn't always this full figured, but things happen, and one of them was I did get cancer, and first I was hit by a truck. I was a pedestrian in a crosswalk, and had some pretty serious injuries. And as I was going through physical therapy, then I got cancer, and that ended the physical therapy. I'm 6 years cancer free. I can walk without a limp, and so I'm healing and getting the weight under control. So we have to understand that sometimes it's beyond your control. Maybe I could have worked a little harder. No, actually, I could have. But, we all have our crosses to bear. So, I don't want to body shame anybody, but, there's desk jobs for that. Well, you get yourself healthy again. And I have a desk job and I'm getting myself healthy again.
Yeah, that's what, and I'm glad you mentioned that. So while you get yourself healthy again, so it's still there is still some kind of like, hey, this is the process. You get back on the street, but only after you have accomplished getting healthy again.
We always need people pushing paper.
That's right. I think you already kind of answered this next question, but if you want to elaborate, I'll go ahead and ask it. What differentiates you from other Republicans who have run in this district and lost?
Well, this is a new district, and I do have two challengers that are Republican. One of them, I don't really know much about her other than she put out a public statement that Trump told her to run, but there was no follow-up. So, that's with her and whatever's going on. My other opponent, I've done a couple of events where we've had the opportunity to talk. I don't think he's ready for the job. I'm quick, and I've got a lot of life experience. And have I run before? Yes. And have I made it to the primary or to the general election? Yes. And my Democrat opponent outspent me 5-1. And I do believe I can do well, and that's part of it. I have to work harder. So, and then we are in California, right? So there's a lot to it. So it's finding those issues that appeal to other people and getting my message out. So we talk about, liberals like to call it environment. I like to call it conservationism. I was asked once, do you believe in climate change? And I said, absolutely. Because when I leave Sacramento and I drive up into the mountains into South Lake Tahoe, the climate changes.
Yep.
There you go. Yep. So it's up to me to do the job and to prove that I'm the better person. And that's going to be up to the voters to decide. But I do know that when I'm asked a question, I was just endorsed by the Gun Owners of America, California Rifle and Pistol Association, California Parents Union, Howard Jarvis Taxpayers. I'm not endorsed by the California Party, GOP, because I don't do what I'm told. I do what I believe is right.
That part of the answer right there. That part of the answer right there. That's what should get you elected.
Okay. I don't carry water for anyone. I do what I believe is right, but I'm open for you to prove me wrong because I don't know everything. And what I don't know, that's when I turn to trusted advisors, experts in any field. That's why with this little head cold I got, I went to the doctor. Got some antibiotics. Why? Because he went to school to do that. Even though I knew from experience, you still have to go to the experts. I don't change my own tire. I know how, but I go to the expert. Make sure that it's balanced and it's done right and the lug nuts are tightened the right way. But Daddy taught me how to change a tire.
Yeah.
You
could do it if you needed to, but.
Exactly. But I have AAA.
Right. Okay. So how do you plan to reach the independent or moderate voters without compromising your principles, doing what is right?
In the new district that I have from Prop 50, remember I talked about the elephant. Mm-hmm. So the elephant trunk goes into South Sacramento, kind of a rough part of town. It's an urban area. And then we go up. And we go up into the El Dorado National Forest, the Tahoe National Forest. We're in the foothills. And we're in California. If you've ever watched the news, you've seen California on fire. Well, this is where a lot of those fires happen. So, but also in California, we have what's called the FAIR Plan. That's a signal right there that it's not fair.
Oh yeah.
Insurance companies were forced to pull out because of the mismanagement of our forests. And we all know this from the forest fires. And so when the insurance companies pulled out, the state stepped in with a program called California Fair Plan that doesn't like to pay out on claims, finds reasons not to pay out on claims. Remember, there's people down in the Palisades. That wasn't even forest. And those people got burned out of their homes, and they're still not paying them out because California Fair Plan's insolvent. But we saw a similar thing happen around the country with floods. Now, a forest fire is a preventable disaster. Floods, hurricanes, storms, it's just not preventable. That's act of God. But we came up with a national flood insurance to make flood insurance affordable and also to mitigate it. You know, you got a cheaper rate if the house was up on stilts, right? So the floodwaters would go under it. So there's things that build your house back 50 feet or, 5 yards, relocate somewhere else on your property. So we have national flood insurance. So I actually wrote a bill and then copyrighted it so my opponents couldn't get it. And it's called the Wildfire Act. And it is national fire insurance. And it doesn't just apply to California because we've got some serious fires going on in Georgia right now. And there's a candidate out there that I would love to have her sign on and co-sponsor this if we don't get it sponsored by a current member of Congress, but for her to co-sponsor it when we're elected and bring relief and mitigation. Because in that bill, I've written in there that we help people out who have defensible space, who have metal roofs. And in that bill, there's a partner with it to help pay for those changes. Because we know under FEMA, under the federal government, under national disaster declarations, that all of the taxpayers are going to pay for it. So I'd rather see an investment. Maybe it's I call it a silent second, second on your home that's based on the changes that we're going to make to clear debris and clear the forest around the house, put on a metal roof, put on some kind of concrete siding or composite siding that doesn't burn, install sprinklers, things like that will mitigate the loss to your house, where it's either at low or no interest and it's paid back when you refinance or sell your house. That's an investment to paying out an insurance claim to rebuild.
Yeah. Yeah. They wanted to blame specifically only the insurance companies, but I know with a little bit, just a smidge about how the bureaucracy has gummed stuff up there in California specifically. And it's like, it's millions of dollars to move a tree.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would I even bother? And so they end up having these people who lost their homes, they end up having to sell it for pennies on the dollar. And then you have these awful crooks that come in, a lot of times celebrities nowadays, apparently. And they come in and they swoop up that real estate for pennies on a dollar and then they make a killing on it.
Yeah. Right now we've got people who own their house free and clear who don't have fire insurance because they can't afford fire insurance for the house that they own. So they take out liability in case anybody's hurt. And if the fire happens, not when the fire comes, if it burns down their house, then they'll get reimbursed most of it by FEMA. Why pay insurance that you can't afford? Right. And that's the mentality in California. And people are losing their homes. I'm in real estate. I get those orders to go inspect properties that are about to be foreclosed on. And I specifically get those orders in those high fire areas where people can pay their mortgage. But when the insurance is more than the mortgage, they lose their homes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's the reality of California. We got to fix it. Otherwise, this cancer will spread across the country.
Who can afford that? I mean, cost of living in Indiana is way, way lower. But if I had to pay my insurance, if my homeowner's insurance cost as much as my mortgage,
more,
or more, yeah, I wouldn't be able to live in a house.
And if you have a mortgage, you have to carry insurance. So that's pricing people out of their homes.
Mhm.
So that's where the Wildfire Act comes in. So even though I haven't been elected to office yet, I'm doing the job and writing the legislation and reaching out to current members of Congress, because we can't bring relief soon enough. It can't wait for me to be elected in November.
Yeah, people just forgot, didn't they? I mean, they just, what's next in the news cycle? Oh, look, aliens. Stop looking at that stuff. I'm telling you, it's distracting.
Yeah, no, look at the Adam Schiff case, because I'm the one who busted him on the mortgage fraud. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank God for you. Look at you, a regular Nick Shirley over there.
He learned from me.
Yeah. So one final question for you.
Okay.
Before we send everybody out over here on Rumble anyway, we'll be rating them out to a good friend of mine. He lives the Liberated podcast. Good guy. But if you're elected,
When I'm elected.
Yeah. When? Yeah. Let me rephrase the question.
You know, it took Abraham Lincoln 8 tries to be president. I'm not going after his record, but hey, you never know.
That's right. So when you're elected, what are your top 3 priorities in your first 100 days?
Wildfire Act. Setting up satellite offices. And what do I mean by that? My district goes from Sacramento all the way up to Truckee and South Lake Tahoe. There's a couple hundred miles. It's not a small area. It's a huge area. So the way this district was built for politicians to pay back other politicians, to fight with each other, not to serve the people, which means that for me, I'm in that first 100 days, I have to set up my office, my congressional office locally, based on just the map. I'm going to need 2, more like 3 offices, so that we can serve the interest of the very distinct communities that are within the district. So that's something that has to be done. Then with that, within that 100 days, I also want to bring up and author legislation to change. I'm already working on it. I'm going to be introducing it in the next couple days. I'll just let that cat out of the bag. How we're going to change higher education. And I've written the bill. I've got to go back through, and you always let it marinate for a few days, like spaghetti sauce. It's always better a couple days later.
That's right.
I'm in real estate, so I'll make this quick as I can. I'm in real estate. So a house that I may qualify, let's say I qualify for a $400,000 house, but you, with your income and ability to repay the debt, you may qualify for a $600,000 house. Okay, so that's based on my earning potential. So if we've got someone going to college and they're going to incur debt, say we got someone who wants to be a first grade teacher and somebody who wants to be a computer engineer. We know that first grade teacher is going to make about $40,000 a year. That computer science guy, he's going to be making, you're the computer science guy, you're going to be making about $100,000 a year. Your ability to repay the debt is more than twice what mine is. But our bachelor's degree, we're going to have to spend the same amount of money to incur the same amount of debt. But your ability to repay the debt based on your degree compared to mine is more than double. Mm-hmm. So as taxpayers, right now, we guarantee student loans. But we give the colleges and universities a blank check. I say, as a taxpayer and as a member of Congress, I'm introducing legislation that says taxpayers, we will only guarantee student loans based on the degree and the ability to repay the debt. So that means when you get your 4-year degree, you can afford to pay this much in debt. But Chris, you're only going to be able to be a teacher. This is how much we're going to guarantee. And this is where the schools are going to have to step up and change how they do education. We can't force them to change their curriculum or what they charge, but we can say what we're going to guarantee. And we do this in home loans. My home loan versus your home loan. We have an 18-year-old kid goes to the dealership and wants to buy a Ferrari. They are never going to get financed on that loan based on their income at McDonald's.
Yeah. It's
right?
a risk assessment. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not saying that, one degree is more valuable than the other, but we've got to hit this with common sense. And it's the ability to repay the debt.
Yeah. That makes complete sense to me. Well, I want to thank you for your time and spending it with me.
Thank you.
You're an absolute joy, honestly. And I'm glad you're out there fighting the good fight, because we need more of us out there. And I'm going to be praying for you. As a matter of fact, if you wouldn't mind,
that's most important right there.
I'd like to pray for you right now, if you wouldn't mind.
Please.
Father God.
Join in, everybody. Please join in. Bow your head.
Father God, first we want to acknowledge the fact that you are the great I am. Without you, nothing happens. So we want to thank you for another day. We want to thank you for breath in our lungs. We want to thank you for the chance to be able to put together this technology and be able to reach folks who may not have otherwise heard the message and the conviction that you've put on Christine's heart to change the culture of this country back to you, God, to direct it in such a way that it ensures a future for our young people, and getting them well educated the right way, Lord.
Yes.
I would love, and I'm going to petition right now, Lord, if you would, it's in your will, get her elected, because I'm liking what I'm hearing. She's not in my district, but I'd love to see her. I'd love to see her do it.
Thank you.
I'm going to pray for her protection.
Thank you, Lord.
Pray for her continued tenacity, and for her to be surrounded with people who will build her up and make her stronger than ever. We pray for all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who took time to listen to me go on. I do appreciate your time.
We'll say glory to God. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Amen.
Okay. So for those who are on anything outside of Rumble, of course, I'll see you guys on Deprogrammed on Saturday. It's 3 p.m. Eastern. So Christine, if you want to check out my show Deprogrammed, it's on Saturday, every other Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So, but there's always the recording too, if you get the chance to check it out. Anyhow, we're going to get, for those who are on Rumble, we'll get you guys rated out to my good friend over there at the Liberated Podcast. And, once again, make sure the notification bells are turned on so you know when we're here, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thank you again, everyone, and have a blessed week.
Question: real estate in California. What the Seriously, can someone help? What's an escrow? What's an ARM? What is an REO? What is pre-approval? Can I get pre-approval? Why is inventory so low? Why are interest rates so high? Oh, interest rates not so high? How low is low? How not so high is right.
Before you go down the road of questions, get expert help at championsofhome.com. California Association of Realtors. Who's your realtor?